There are 4,218 PS2 games, and I'm beating every one of them. I've got to own the game because I'm playing everything on the original hardware, but I've beefed it up with a RetroTink 5X, some component cables, and more to come soon. Can I do this before I die of old age? I hope so. X2 Wolverine's Revenge was developed by Warthog Games, specifically the PS2, Xbox, and GameCube versions, and was released in April of 2003. It released alongside the X2 movie and had a GBA, PC, and Mac version as well. Scores were average at best, with many criticisms highlighting no checkpoints, unfair difficulty, and clunky controls. Can I beat this action stealth X-Men game? Wolverine's Revenge was a bit of a difficult game, and of course it was another requested game, and so everyone told me, man, this is going to be a little bit tough, and you'll see why. There's a very special reason why it's a little bit tough. And we'll get to that when it gets there, but let's start with the tutorial of the game. The two things we notice before gameplay begins is that Wolverine is voiced by Mark Hamill, which is wonderful. He obviously does a great job doing voice acting, so awesome. We get to hear him talk through Wolverine for the rest of the game. And we get to see that he is being tested right now by a professor. This is around the time he was originally implanted with the adamantium in his body and the claws and everything like that. So he's kind of out of it right now. Obviously he has his helmet on and this professor's talking to him, but Wolverine hears him over this open mic say that he's an animal, and it makes him upset, and so he decides to start attacking people with extreme ferocity. Now, quickly before I explain how the tutorial works, I'll just say that Wolverine is an X-Men and his power is extreme healing, and he can heal the wounds on his body, and that will come into play in this game. But just to give you a quick idea of who Wolverine is, he is a pretty cool mutant, he's very popular, and he's also just very strong. So the very first thing we learn is that we can pull our claws out and retract them back into our hands. Having our claws out allows us to deal extra damage, but pulling them back in allows his healing factor to begin to work. Now, this is a gameplay mechanic and not at all indicative of who Wolverine is. Obviously, his healing factor works no matter what. But in the game, they've got to give you some kind of mechanics. So, you pull your claws out to deal more damage, you can put them away and still deal damage with your fists, but now your healing factor is activated and you can slowly heal your health. And it begins by healing pretty slowly in the game. It's not very fast, and it kind of feels weird because one of the problems I have with this game is that you have to wait around for the healing factor to heal your health. And I think what they were trying to do was make it so that in the middle of battle, you can slowly heal, but you can't heal to full immediately, which is fine. But then there's no way for the game to detect when you're not in combat and you have almost no health and you just stand for literally a minute waiting for your health to slowly regenerate. If you're not in combat, your health should be able to go to full in a couple seconds. I mean, there's no reason not to. There was never a time that I was in danger after a fight where I died because my healing factor wasn't moving quick enough. It just took time. And I think when I'm playing games, I don't want things to take so much time, so that was an issue. The next thing we learn about are strikes. When you have opponents around you, you'll see a word at the bottom left of the screen come up that says strike, and if you press circle, you'll activate the strike mechanic and you'll attack those enemies. You'll be invulnerable for the period of time you're doing this, and you will deal damage to those enemies only, and when you come out of it, you can keep fighting. Sometimes they die, sometimes they don't, depending on how strong you are at the time, because you do get different levels of strikes as you collect dog tags. And you get dog tags in different ways. I'll explain that in a moment. But when you're doing the strikes, the enemies must be around you in a particular order, and you can look at this order in your menu. And it doesn't really matter because the game will just activate whatever strike it is. You don't have to pay attention necessarily. Now, you can do 3 enemies, but it is difficult because there's only one formation that you can have 3 enemies around you in, and they have to be pretty precisely in those locations. I did activate the 3-man strike a few times during the gameplay, but it is hard to do. The game really wants you to do 2 because it's easy for the game to recognize that there's 2 enemies in those spots, especially because all they have to do is be on either side of you. Whereas the 3-man one, you have to have 2 on either side of you, and the third one must be in the spot adjacent to those 2 enemies. And they have to be, like I said, very specific, so it's hard to activate. And when you do activate it, it feels good. You get the extra dog tag pickup, which is one of the things I said. If you get 3 enemies, you get an extra dog tag pickup. Obviously, you get a lot of points towards your strike abilities, so that's very helpful. Now, as you collect the dog tags, which you can get by pulling off 3-man strikes and stealthing killing people, you will be able to activate stronger versions of your strikes. Now, when you press circle, the game gives you maybe a couple seconds to input a series of buttons, which usually have circle and triangle as the combos, and you'll get a stronger version, and you have have to do it, otherwise you're going to do a slightly weaker version of the strike and not kill later game enemies. Okay, next, if you hold the L2 button, you can sneak around while also using Wolverine's heightened senses to notice things like scent trails and footprints, and then also activate your stealth strikes. And like I said, stealth strikes give you dog tags, so you'll want to try to perform those as many times as you can. If you have a situation where you can perform a stealth strike, do it so you can get stronger strikes. Now, if you hold the L1 button, instead of activating his heightened senses and sneaking, you will just normally sneak. Now, when you're hugging a wall, if you get to the corner and kind of lean out, you can pull a strike off from someone who's just around the corner, which is very helpful. There's a lot of games who do stuff like this, and it's very nice because you really need to be able to strike people from stealth, because sometimes it's just too difficult to fight all these enemies. Wolverine also has a feral rage mechanic, where after being hit or dealing damage, you will eventually get this little red bar to go up, and if you double tap your claws, then you can activate feral rage, where you move faster and deal more damage. That's pretty much it. It is very helpful though, don't get me wrong, it's just not a very complex mechanic. Otherwise, as the tutorial moves on, we get to learn a couple other things that are very basic. Things like how to get dog tags, which I already talked about. Pressing circle is how you activate things in the environment if you need to activate them. If you want to destroy things, you need your claws out to actually deal damage to objects. And you'll be looking for things like mines on the ground sometimes. If you daze an enemy, you can pick them up and throw them at other enemies. You can perform strikes on single enemies, but you need to get them down in health quite a bit, and I think maybe stun them or daze them in some sort of fashion. Otherwise, it's just pretty much finishing them off a little bit easier. I also learned on my own how to do a sliding tackle and a spinning attack that will hit multiple enemies and get you a little closer to them. Some of those moves are very difficult to use. They are very precise, and if you miss by even a pixel, you will not hit the enemy and instead slide past embarrassingly as they blow your brains out with a machine gun, or hit you if they're a mutant. The tutorial just kind of abruptly ends kind of in the middle of a mission, and you don't know why or when, but the first act of the game contains the tutorial as well as Wolverine's escape from the facility that he's been locked in. And during this time, we'll do a couple different things, although mostly we're pretty much just killing enemies, stealth killing enemies, and fighting mutants. There are these weird mutants in test tubes that pop out and they deal a lot of damage. They are hard to stagger, and practically the only safe way to fight them is in pairs of two, where you perform a strike. That way you don't take any damage and you can kill them much quicker. Because like I said, they just don't stagger, and if you fight one solo, they're very difficult to fight, man. It's hard to tell what they're going to do, and they do this cute little Super Smash Bros. Luigi move where if they're sprinting at you, they can just reach out their hands and smack at you quickly, and you can't get out of that. There is a scientist we must escort. Once we save him from these mutants, we have to take him all the way back to a computer to help activate these controls. And this is the first time I learn a very painful lesson that this game will teach you many, many times. If you die, no matter where you are in a level, you will begin the level from the beginning. There is not a single checkpoint anywhere, except for the beginning of a new stage. So good luck if you die the second before the mission ends, because you'll have to do the entire thing again. Shortly after this, we fight our arch nemesis, Sabretooth, and Wolverine has a healing factor, so does Sabretooth, which means that you cannot just kill him by attacking him, and I found this out the hard way. I guess it wasn't really that hard, but I smacked him a bunch until I got him to low health, but his healing factor activates to a point where the only way to kill him is to throw him into something environmental to finish off the last of his health. He isn't really that hard of a boss. You walk up and grab him from behind and just kind of toss him into whatever you want to toss him into. Or, like I did, you can just do this little pirouette attack and go past him, and every time you hit him, you just turn around and do it again, turn around and do it again. He never even touched me until I had to finally start grabbing him to throw him, and once I did, I defeated him. And he does not die, he's Sabretooth, he just never dies, man. So he walks away dejectedly, he's like, no, it sucks. And then we have to go find the professor who performed all these experiments on us, because we're pretty pissed at him. And when we do find him, he says, I would have been a fool not to put a failsafe in all my weapons. And what he means is he put a virus in all of the Weapon X mutants, including Sabretooth, me, everyone. They all have this virus in them that will activate eventually, that will kill you, so that way you can't just be an unstoppable killing machine. But he does say that for a normal human it may take a year, but because we have a healing factor, it could take years and years, which seems like a very weird failsafe, and when you can't even activate, it just will eventually happen. Plus it gives me years and years to find a way to get rid of it. That's kind of stupid, except for the fact that Wolverine wanders the Canadian wilderness for years trying to do whatever he's trying to do until he finally comes to see Professor Xavier and the X-Men Mutant Academy, and he's like, oh yeah, I forgot all about that. And Beast says, well, that was stupid because you have now like 48 hours to live. It's activated past your healing factor and it will kill you in 48 hours. So great job, dude. Professor Xavier, who is voiced by Patrick Stewart in this game as well, tells us the only way to find a serum is probably to go back to Weapon X facility, where we just came from, although technically we're now 2 or 3 years in the future, so Wolverine doesn't even know if that place exists. But Professor Xavier says, oh, it does. And so we get in a plane with this random woman, and we go flying over there. And she apparently gets a airstrike called on us. She doesn't want us to get over there, and so the plane blows up. But, I mean, we're Wolverine. Not only do we have adamantium underneath our skin, but we also have a healing factor. So she goes down with the plane and we are just fine. Although, and here's the worst part, this is just Act 2. It just feels like the game started. Already, our healing factor is greatly diminished. It tells us not to try to fight people because we have very low healing factor. And this is what I'm talking about. This does not make sense from a story perspective. Wolverine is super powerful. His healing factor doesn't just go away unless there's a specific thing that stops it, like specifically meant to stop it, not just a plane crash. And that's what it says. It doesn't say the virus, it says the plane crash. Like, what? He survived so many more things, and the plane crash is gonna make him heal less? Anyway, we start with practically no health, so I retract my claws and I sit there for 5 to 10 minutes waiting for my health to regen. Anyway, this level is kind of weird. Like I said, your healing factor is shit here, so you don't want to fight anyone unless you absolutely have to, and you do have to eventually, so I don't know what they're thinking. Anyway, we need to stealth around and we need to first go destroy this power grid and then get inside of a facility, open up the elevator, and then get past a bunch of guys into the elevator. It doesn't sound like a lot, but this level takes me several tries, mostly because when you are destroying the power grid and going back inside, there's a chopper who is just sitting there watching you. Now, I don't know what you're supposed to do to actually get past it, but I eventually find that if I go to a different side of the map and sneak all the way up to the door, if you jump down into the door, it will activate a loading scene and the doors will close, avoiding every single person and the chopper above you. I don't know if that's actually how you're supposed to do it, but it's the only way I can because my health is so low constantly and I can't heal quick enough and there's no reason to fight that it's just impossible, man. So it takes me 5 or 6 tries to find a good flow to get through this section of the game. Now, during this section of the game, I do find a guy on a bridge I can't figure out what to do with. He's like hanging there and then he falls. So I go to save him once and this is the hilarious scene that ensues. Okay, so once you get into that little facility and you call the elevator, then there are several sets of dudes sitting in front of the elevator, and the only way I found you can actually get into the elevator is to kill all of them, because if you jump into it with people still alive, the mission fails. Now this is the end of the mission. So if you jump into the elevator because you think you'll outsmart them, nope, you can't do that. If they see you, they will immediately fail the mission. So what I did was I ran around back to the opening and I would gather maybe 2 or 3 of those dudes to come fight me, and I'd slowly fight them in hopes that I could kill enough of them that I could go out and grab a few more, And this is what I do for about 10 minutes, man. It takes so friggin' long. It was just not that fun of a mission. I don't really like these stealth ones. Once we make it down this elevator, the next mission starts, and this one is very boring in my opinion. You have to stealth kill enemies in a certain order to not alert any other enemies, and that's practically it. Going around this small section stealth killing, over and over, and once you do, you're done. It really only took about 10 to 15 minutes to get through the level, but I die a couple times trying to figure out which order I should kill them in, and I also take some liberties trying to jump over the edge of things, hoping no one will see me, but really you need to create a distraction to pull specific guards away from the door and then go through the door. So there's no fudging this one, at least not in a speedrun glitch kind of way. I just had to do exactly what it wanted me to do. The next mission is extremely short for me. I don't know if it's because I just figured out an easy way to get through it or what, but you're in the mines and it's very dark, so you can sneak around and you can sneak very close to people, like almost in front of them without them seeing you. So I'm able to stealth kill people very quickly and then jump into an elevator and go. This one took about 5 minutes. I was very surprised that it was so quick. But the next mission's a bit difficult because it ends in a boss. As you get down further into the mines, there's a Wendigo, this big, huge, ice-looking creature, and you need to feed him soldiers, so you need to stagger the soldier, pick him up, and then throw him at the Wendigo, who will eat him and go further down into the caves. Otherwise, apparently he's just too strong for us at this point, but then we eventually end up fighting him anyway. So what's the difference? But really what it is to stagger enemies, throw them at him, and have him progress further and then follow him. Then more enemies will come up and you just keep feeding them the dudes until you get to the boss fight. The Wendigo fight is a bit annoying, so the whole mechanic of the fight is he runs at you crazily, and you need to lead him into the icicles that are in the ground because they will slow him down and eventually he'll skid to a halt. When he does, you need to go up and hit him at least once or twice, it's kind of random which one it is, and suddenly the strike command will show up. You have literal seconds to activate all of this once he slides to a halt, or he will continue to run at you again in a second, and you just don't have a lot of time, so you gotta punch him and then activate the strike. You'll grab his tail, you gotta spin the stick around until you throw him, and it will deal damage. It's, Super Mario 64 Bowser fight practically, except a little bit more mechanically complex, I guess if you're gonna call it that. He will eventually smash the ground and let these little red icicles fall down all around. As long as you're to the extreme edges of this platform you're standing on, you'll be fine, it won't hit you. But if you fall off the platform, there are spikes and you'll fall onto a spike and just die. Because Wolverine's just a baby, I guess. He doesn't have any healing factor. He doesn't have any adamantium skeleton underneath him or anything, nothing like that. He's got nothing. So it's practically just guide this Wendigo around, have him slide, strike him until he dies. And once he's dead, you get several dog tags to help upgrade your strikes, which is really nice. The next stage is one of the longest in the game, by far. The level has a lot of variety throughout, because you start out by going through some doors and hitting some buttons, you have to sneak through a minefield, you get ambushed, you've got to stealth kill people, you have to dodge and avoid these machine guns, you must go activate a machine gun, you got to get on the machine gun and shoot people, which is kind of weird and it's still a little difficult. Then you gotta sneak past a bunch of guys in trucks with machine guns on the back of them, and if you fail anything and die, you have to start it all over. Now, I died maybe 5 or 6, 7 times, and then I still figured out my way through the level, and the last time I finally was successful going through the level, it still took me 40 minutes, even knowing exactly where to go for the first 3/4 of the mission. It was crazy. There's just so much to do in this one. Once I finally make it through after quite a long time, the next mission's very, very boring in relation to this last one. Although this one we do finally get a little bit more stronger enemies to fight us, and I do learn something kind of cool. If you are running at someone and slide into them, you practically knock their weapon out of their hand. So most of the time I'm spending running at people with weapons, sliding into them, knocking their gun out of their hand so they can stop hitting me from far away. And I just do that over and over so that I can get them all close together to perform strike moves. At the end of this mission though, there are some lasers I need to walk past by using my heightened senses to see everything, and then I walk underneath them, and it ends in me finding the laboratories, which we're getting closer to finding a solution to this virus that we have. Wolverine must continue ever downwards, and to do that in a small kind of packed in level, I have to break a bunch of windows to a bunch of rooms to find some discs to activate a computer that will open up an elevator that will allow me to go down further. I do get a little turned around though, because some of these rooms don't have doors. The only way to get in them are the windows, or they do have doors and they're locked. So you have to break every single window and go in every single room until you find the scientist with the disc. Otherwise, this is just go around and kill everyone, get a disc, kill everyone who spawns again, open the computer, kill everyone who spawns again, and then get in the elevator. Further down, the only unique experience here really is that you need to escort a scientist over to a control panel, and at first I was worried because I thought this was going to be an entire escort mission, and it's not. You only have to escort him through this room to the computer panel, and then you have to move a crate out of the way of a doorway. It honestly isn't too hard, and I'm glad that they only made it last for about a minute, so thank God. I know we're gonna run into some games with some terrible escort missions. Anyway, as we move through the level, I find a very weird spot at the end of the level that has this large room with turrets everywhere shooting you, guys everywhere, and it was hard to tell where I needed to go. It kind of funneled me to the back of the room. The problem is that on your way, the turrets really do tear you up if you're not careful. So I ended up retreating and trying to find health pickups along the level and trying to let my health regenerate. And I just missed this door on the bottom part of the back level, and I couldn't believe it, but I died and had to redo the entire level again, which they're now getting much longer because it's just a lot of fights. And when I got back there the next time, I saw the door, and I think, man, how did I miss the door? Well, you're getting shot at constantly by these turrets, so maybe it was that. At the end, we find out that the serum is actually being held somewhere in a prison, most likely by another high-level mutant, like Magneto or something. And so we've got to break into prison to get it. And as we leave, we actually fight Sabretooth again. This fight isn't terribly difficult, although the one difficult part for me was you're supposed to get behind him after he tries to grab you. And when he misses, you have a strike option when you're behind him to throw him into something. Kind of like the last fight you had with him. But for some reason, the strike button almost never shows up. You just have to hit circle a bunch until finally it activates. And I almost died before I was able to even use it once. But once I started using it, I figured out you just need to jam on it and it will work. And then at half health, he goes into the fire and throws barrels at you, and you must Legend of Zelda them back to him by smacking them with your claws when they get close. And after a while, he dies, and then he actually gives you part of the serum. Sadly, you need both parts to be cured from this virus. So Professor X looks through your eyes at the serum you have in your hands. He's gonna synthesize this part, but now you've got to go get the other part. We get to the prison and we see our friend Colossus, who lets us in by pretending like we weren't even there, which, okay, fine, whatever. He wants to do some antics, we can do some antics. We go inside and we take a guard's clothes, and as long as we don't get close to the other guards or something, I don't know. I killed everyone, I didn't care about stealth. So I just kill everyone wearing the guard's uniform. Like, hey, I killed your buddy, wore his outfit, then killed you. Eventually I find myself unlocking some force fields and then a door to a droid room where I control this huge droid to break down some doors so that I can get further into the level. And that's actually the end of this one once you use the droid and break through the doors. The next level is a bit difficult. You are assaulted by cameras and bots and droids and people all over the place. And this is actually a fairly short level, but I get kind of antsy and I get tired of trying to sneak past the cameras, of which I just start throwing myself into the level because I die a couple times, and eventually I get to this room guarded by the droid bots that I drove earlier. There's 4 of them, and inside of this room there's a crate somewhere that has the security card to get out of this room. Now fighting these things is like impossible, man. I don't know if you're supposed to be able to do it a certain way or what, but I just run around the room avoiding their fire, hitting crates until I find the key card, which, by the way, the game doesn't tell you it's hidden in one of these crates. I had no clue. I just accidentally broke one when I was running away, and it said, hey, you got a security card. And once I open the door to the security card, it just lets me into the next level practically. So it's a very short level that took about half an hour because I was just tired of sneaking. Before the next mission begins, we see Sabretooth further down than us, unlocking the cages to several big bad dudes, which one of them is Magneto, and we all know that he does a number on Wolverine since his skeleton is covered in metals. So I don't know what we're supposed to do against Magneto. Luckily, there's no stealth in the next level, but we do start out by using a droid bot again to blow away some doors, and some other droids and some people. But you gotta be careful, because eventually your droid can be destroyed before you even get to the next area you need to get to. So you gotta know where those guys are gonna be at, because they shoot rockets at you, and if you can kind of get ahead of them, you can shoot them before they shoot a rocket at you and come out with full health with the droid and make it all the way through, which makes it a lot easier, because if you don't, you've gotta run through as Wolverine by himself, and those guys are poised up above you with rockets, like I said, so don't let your droid die. I go through several floors that have electrified floors that you can actually activate yourself and have people get zapped on them, because at this point, enemies are very difficult. If you don't do the 3rd level of strike, you will not get enough damage on them to even kill them. So you've still got to do the strikes 2 times on an enemy to kill him, but it's got to be the 3rd level or you just can't do it. So I take a lot of time trying to get through these electrified floors. Eventually there's a fire down in some of the areas down here that you have to break some pipes to make water go on the fire to extinguish it. But sometimes it's not easy to tell where the fire is. In fact, one of the times the fire was invisible. I walked through it and died. And I was like, well, I couldn't see it. It's invisible fire. Another short mission is in order, and it's short for a weird reason, because you're supposed to be going through these force field doors that sometimes periodically stop working and then come back on, so you've got to just time your movement through them, as well as destroying some computers that will help break some of them down. But there are turrets everywhere, and if you get noticed by people, you will eventually get shot by the turrets. So you go into another room and you're activating an elevator, and the second you do, a bunch of dudes stream into the room. Well, I decide to run out of the room and run way back to the beginning, and that gets me almost killed. I run all the way back and I start letting my healing factor take over while I'm waiting. But suddenly, a key card just pops into my inventory at the bottom of the screen here. And I'm thinking, well, I didn't kill anyone, so how would that happen? One of the guys died, whoever had the key card died, and then I just run all the way back into the room full of dudes, run past them and to the door. I guess that's it. So at the end of that one, we get the next part of the serum. These two scientists down in this room that we go to give me the part of the serum, or we take it from them, and we try and get a hold of Professor X in our head. However, this prison is shielded, and so we cannot get through. So we memorize the sheet and walk out of here. On our way out to try and contact Professor X, we have to fight Juggernaut after a short jaunt with some enemies up to a helipad. Now, the Juggernaut fight, actually all of these fights kind of suck, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I did not like them. So the Juggernaut fight. Here's the deal. He's really simple. He starts in the middle of the stage, he charges you, and you need to have him run into these electrified posts. When you do, he gets sent back to the middle. You must go and smack him a couple times and then use a strike command to deal damage to him. This whole time, enemies are throwing grenades into the arena with poison gas, which do hurt you and stop your healing factor. And you can touch the electrified poles and get hurt yourself. He can slam into you, and you've just got very little room to work with. Now here is the difficult part. Two things. The first one is when he charges you, you have to move at the last second. And no, Wolverine does not have really good control. I mean, it's just impossible sometimes to dodge out of the way. You don't dodge far enough with your regular dodge button. He always hits me. So what I was doing was trying to jump out of the way, because you can kind of skirt the hitboxes at the top of his character if you jump and move to the left or the right. But you cannot be locked onto him. This small lock-on feature in this game is helpful, I suppose, for fighting enemies, but it will not allow you to jump left or right if you are locked on for some reason. Like, it's impossible. So you have to unlock, then jump left or right at the last second. Sometimes it's hard to tell if he's even gonna run into the electrified pole. So after you finally figure out how to dodge his attacks and have him hit the pole, then you have to be absolutely 100% lucky for the strike ability to show up. So when you run up and smack him, you have to hit him at least 2 times for the strike ability to show up. The problem is that your combos sometimes hit up to 3 times, and if they hit 3 times, it does not allow you to do it. It gives you almost no time to do it. So I struggled over and over just trying to activate the strike ability, trying to figure out what it was I needed to do to get it to show up consistently, and there was really no way. I was slowly trying to hit square to attack him and then get that strike ability to come up, but I would inevitably get 2 hits off after 1, and so it'd be 3, and then he'd just turn around and smack me again. And so it took a long time. It just felt unpolished, something I wish they would have been able to polish these last fights. Next is a small turret section, which I guess is fine. You gotta shoot some stuff and save this helicopter. Otherwise, it's really not that hard. It's pretty short. The next fight we have is with Magneto, and the whole idea is that he is weakened, so he can't really affect you as much as he wants to be able to. So you're allowed to fight a bunch, which, I mean, is great and all, but it doesn't really make that much sense. Anyway, the whole idea is that he is trying to gather the power to actually fight you properly, and he's doing it by standing behind something and gathering energy from all these generators everywhere and trying to put the energy together into this like weird tornado of energy. I don't know, I'm not sure exactly what he's doing. I don't know that much about X-Men, but we have to open up the gate to get there. So we stealth in to kill some dudes and open the gate, which I do about 50 times because I have to fight them so much. After you kill these guys and go through the gate with metal things flying around all over the stage, I mean whacking you in the face, you just gotta like really fly through this stage. You were supposed to go hit these breaker panels to stop him from gathering energy, but I can never figure out what it wants me to do here. What I think it's doing is it's sometimes deactivating his blocks onto those panels. So all the panels are blocked when you initially come in, but at some point they become unblocked. However, you are constantly fought by these really tough dudes, and if you are in the middle of a fight and he unblocks it, you gotta get over there and hit it with your claws as fast as possible, which I just never did. I just eventually ended up letting him move on to the next phase of the fight, having some extra energy. And then you have to find your way through the roofs and through these buildings until you get to him, and you have to get to him quick. You have to, otherwise you're gonna lose. When you get to him, he's making this big tornado of energy, and it cannot reach, I don't know, the side of this street. I'm not really sure where it's supposed to meet. I think it's just a power thing. He's gathering enough power. Once he does, you lose. So you have to kill enemies very close to this like tornado thing, and it will suck them up into it for some reason. And probably all the metal on their body, on their armor. But once you do, it will suck them up. The problem is it doesn't consistently suck them up. And killing them around it doesn't always work. I don't know. I'm not really sure what was going on with this fight. I had a lot of trouble. Maybe other people didn't, but I really struggled trying to get people to go into this stupid tornado. Well, that isn't the end of Magneto. You still have to actually beat him, and this fight is insufferable and full of glitches. And I'm honest with you, these are real glitches. So he is suddenly floating in these areas of this like warehouse, and you have to run and do a jumping slash off of different parts of these platforms. Wherever he is, you have to get close enough and find a break in the railings and jump at him and hit him. You knock him down and you eventually get him to die. That's the whole point, is just jumping off this over and over. And if you consistently jump at him, he'll never have a chance to find a spot and gather energy. The more energy he gathers, the tougher he is, and eventually he's too tough to actually fight, so it just kills you. So you can't let him ever go gather energy, which sure is fine. That would be fine, if not for the fact that sometimes you just cannot jump slash off of these ledges. Sometimes you just fall right off into nothingness, all the way on the ground, and then you've got to go back up and get him, and by that time he's probably moved or gone over to gather energy, and you have to go over and hit him a bunch to stop him from gathering energy, which is completely time wasting because now you're not really doing enough damage to him. The jump slashes are what do the damage. During this time, he is throwing barrels around like he's awesome Donkey Kong on these levels, and you can't dodge them. You just have to hope they don't hit you, because sometimes those things just smack you right in the face when you least expect it. As you're doing this, he can sometimes just grab you. The screen will pulse on top of you, he'll pick you up, do a little damage, and drop you. This is where the biggest glitch comes from. If he drops me and I'm in the middle of doing something, I will get stuck in this weird animation of jumping, and I can't get out of it almost. It's like almost impossible. I have to jam on all my buttons and hope I can get out of it. And it's just jump, 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 and it's slow and I can't perform any other actions. I don't know what you're supposed to do there, but it was like, I have no clue what's going on. I don't know what is happening. I can't get to this dude to fight him. It took like an hour to fight this stupid fucking boss fight. And then one time I beat him, but for some reason at the very bottom of the level there's a bunch of friggin' lava. If you break through the floor and kill him in the lava, which sounds great, you can't get out in time. I'm stuck on his corpse and I'm on fire and I'm trying to jump out of it, and so I die and I have to restart the fight and do it all over again, probably about 8 or 9 more times. This fight was insufferable, man. It's terribly designed and it's just full of glitches. I could not get to Magneto half the time to even hit this dude. This was a bad boss fight. We are not done yet. We have to still fight Lady Deathstrike, who is practically like your counterpart, but instead of claws out of her knuckles, she has claws out of her fingertips like nails, which is kind of weird, but whatever, I don't care. The first part of the fight is just getting her down in health a little bit and using a strike command to knock her out for just a second, because then you have to climb a ladder. If she's not knocked out, you can't climb the ladder. Once you climb the ladder, another phase starts. You have to deactivate this fence that will zap you when you get close to it. There are 4 panels you must destroy, and it takes several hits to actually destroy them. And every time you start attacking one, she will come after you with some fire attacks and just smashing you into the ground. You cannot render her unconscious in any way, so your best bet is to just attack these buttons so that she comes over to do the fire attack, which means that she's going to open some vents near you and have fire hit you. If you attack the panel once or twice and see her start to come at the fire panels, just leave and go to another one. She's kind of stuck in this animation. So you can go around the level just hitting every one of the panels a couple times, getting her to move around with you, and eventually destroy all of them pretty simply. After you destroy all the panels, she goes on to her last phase, which has these Tesla coils, about 6 of them, standing around this area where she shoots lightning out of herself. I don't know why, but she shoots these waves that you must jump over, as if this game has suddenly turned into a platformer of some sort. And no, Wolverine does not jump very well. She sends out waves of these things, and you've got to dodge them. But for some reason, if you just normally jump and let Wolverine land, you do not have time to dodge the second wave if she shoots one. You must jump and then go towards the first wave once you get behind it, so you can land in a manner that will allow you to jump over the second one. And most of the time, I get hit by the second one because it's hard to do. I don't know who designed it, but F you. Anyway, these Tesla coils will eventually activate, and all you have to do is punch them, and eventually I get her down. But of course, before she actually dies, we have to do one more hand-to-hand fight with her, and if we win, we can strike her off the building and she loses, and we get the other part of the serum, which is then given to us, and we beat the game. Now, just so you know, this boss fight with Lady Deathstrike is 10 minutes long. I mean, you have 10 minutes to beat her, and if you don't beat her in 10 minutes, you fucking lose. So you better do it quick. Once you learn how to do stuff, it's not too bad, but it still is annoying. You know, you have a time limit on top of like 3 or 4 phases. But once you do it, that is game number 79 beaten. That's right, we get credits. Wolverine is safe now from this virus. He gets cured. He's now just a regular old mutant, just like anyone else. And he can go on living life and killing people radically, you know, whatever. This game is interesting. I had fun while playing it because some of the mechanics are kind of fun, some of the things you do are kind of fun. I don't necessarily think the game is hard in a traditional sense. It's hard because some of the things they have you do are just idiotic, and I don't like the stealth. We're Wolverine. Why are we stealthing so many places, right? Like, I get that he can, you know, sneak up behind someone and kill them very quickly, but why are we playing a person who is known for their aggressive fighting style and making sure we stealth everywhere and stealth kill people? Like, come on, man. Let me do some cool combos. It should have worked on the combo system. It would have probably helped for the bosses, who most of them were very janky. I don't know. It was a 6.5 out of 10 in my opinion, which is still a decent game. Don't forget, I don't do a, like, the game has to be an 8 or a 9 or just a 9 to be fantastic or something. Anything lower than an 8 is terrible. No. 6.5 for me is a decent game, one that I enjoyed playing, but there are a lot of flaws. And I think the biggest flaw in this game is that there are no checkpoints. Starting over at the beginning of a stage because you die for some stupid reason really feels terrible, and I don't like it. I wish they had a checkpoint in the middle of the level. Just one damn checkpoint. So 6.5, fun game. Thank you so much for requesting this game, because it was still a really interesting one. There's gonna be so many interesting games. The PS2 is just awesome. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you stayed this long in the video, I appreciate it so much. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone who was there for the stream. There were a lot of people to watch the stream. It was a lot of fun. We had to figure some stuff out. It was crazy seeing the glitches and watching me struggle through this game. Thank you everyone who is a membership on Patreon, YouTube, and Twitch. Thank you guys so much. You are making this all possible. And thank you just for being interested in this challenge. I am enjoying it so much, and there's so many games to come up. So I will see everyone later for game number 80. Later.